The Galactic Coalition vessel, Covenant's Mercy, hung in the silent dark far from any star worth naming. Its hull, smooth and pearlescent like a beetle's shell, bore the scars of recent battles, deep gashes sealed with emergency resin, flickering sensor arrays, and the faint hum of overworked life support. Inside the command chamber, Ambassador Varel stood alone, his many-jointed limbs tense, his compound eyes fixed on the main display. Varel was Myrathi, a species known for patience, precision, and diplomacy. For 300 cycles, he had served the Galactic Conquered, mediating disputes between starfaring civilizations, smoothing tensions, and preserving the fragile peace that held the known systems together. But now peace was a luxury no one could afford. A distress signal had reached them 3 days ago. Faint, broken, almost drowned in static. It came from Helios Prime, a once-thriving world on the edge of Krell-controlled space. The Krell were not a civilization, they were a machine, a relentless, expansionist empire that consumed worlds, stripped them of resources, and left behind only glass and silence. No species had ever pushed them back. None had even tried. The signal repeated the same phrase over and over in halting standard. "We beg for aid." Varel had played it for his council. They had shaken their heads, antennae drooping in sorrow. "No one can help Helios Prime," the senior envoy had said. "The Krell fleet there numbers in the hundreds. Even if we sent every ship we have, it would be suicide," but something in the tone of the message gnawed at Varel. It wasn't just fear, it was desperation laced with something else, urgency, warning. The transmission mentioned biocontamination and atmospheric collapse. Those were not typical Krell tactics. The Krell burned cities, not ecosystems. They enslaved populations, not poisoned biospheres. Against every protocol, Varel did something no Myrathi diplomat had done in centuries. He opened a general emergency channel, a frequency reserved only for extinction-level events, and broadcast a plea across all known networks. To any who hear this, his voice had crackled through the void. Translated into a dozen languages, Helios Prime is under siege. The Krell are there in force. But something is wrong. The planet is dying from within. If you have the means, the will, or even the mercy to respond, we beg you, answer. He expected silence, or worse, mockery. The galaxy was vast and most of it was indifferent. But 12 hours later a reply came. It was not from the Conquered. Not from the mercenary guilds. Not from any registered fleet. The signal was raw, unencrypted, and carried the rough edge of human speech. A language Varel barely recognized from ancient archives. Earth had been written off centuries ago as a failed colony, a death world lost to radiation storms, toxic oceans, and violent weather. Most scholars believed it was uninhabitable. Some thought it was myth, yet here was a voice calm and cold as vacuum. Coordinates received. Stand by, no name, no rank. No vessel designation beyond a string of numbers that meant nothing to the Concord databases. Just those 4 words. Varel stared at the comm panel, his heart chamber pulsing faster than protocol allowed. He ordered a deep scan of the sector. Nothing. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to tear open 50,000 kilometers off their port bow. A ship dropped out of warp. It was not sleek, not elegant, not even intact. Its hull was a patchwork of scorched metal, alien plating, and what looked like welded asteroid rock. One engine nacelle was missing entirely, replaced by a jury-rigged thruster cobbled from scrap. The ship listed slightly, as if exhausted from a long run through hell. Its name, barely visible beneath layers of grime and burn marks, read, Persephone's Resolve. Varel had never seen a human vessel. No one in the Conquered had. Yet as he watched the ship stabilize, he felt a primal unease crawl through his exoskeleton. An instinct his species had not felt since the age of predators, long before they took to the stars. This was not a rescue ship. This was something else. On the bridge of the Persephone's Resolve, Captain Elias Rourke stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the Myrathi vessel on the main screen. He was tall, lean, with eyes that had seen too much and said too little. His uniform was faded, patched at the elbows, and bore no insignia. Around him, his crew moved with quiet efficiency. No chatter, no wasted motion. They were all like him. Hard, quiet, and used to being the last one standing. "Signal confirmed," said a woman at the comm station. Her name was Tessa. She had a voice like gravel and a cybernetic arm that whirred softly when she typed. "They're asking for ID." Rourke didn't answer right away. He studied the Covenant's mercy, peaceful, clean, soft, everything Earth was not. "Tell them we're inbound," he finally said. "ETA to Helios Prime, 36 hours. "They're going to want to know who we are," Tessa pressed. Rourke turned, his gaze steady. "Let them wonder." He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Earth wasn't on any official star chart anymore. Officially it didn't exist, but everyone in the black knew the stories. The Death World, the planet where children learned to gut predators before they could read. Where storms could flay flesh in minutes. Where survival wasn't a right, it was a daily fight. And from that world came people like him. People who didn't ask for permission. People who didn't wait for orders. People who answered pleas with action, not words. Back on the Covenant's mercy, Varel received the update. The human ship was setting course for Helios Prime. Alone. He tried to raise them again to ask questions to understand their intent. But the channel went dead. The Persephone's resolve had gone dark. No transponder, no comms, just a silent shadow cutting through the void. Varel felt a chill deeper than space. He had asked for aid, but what was coming wasn't aid, it was something older, something fiercer, something that didn't beg. It answered. And as the human ship vanished into the long dark toward Helios Prime, Varel whispered a prayer in his native tongue, one his ancestors used when predators circled the nest, because somewhere out there the wolves were running. And the galaxy had just learned that Earth was not a cradle, it was a forge, and what came out of it did not come to save. It came to end. Helios Prime was dying. The sky burned orange with ash, not sunset. The air tasted of metal and rot. What little water remained in the rivers bubbled with strange chemicals, glowing faintly in the dark. The Krell had not just invaded, they had unmade the world. Their war machines had cracked the crust in places, letting poison gases seep from deep below. Their bioharvesters, towering spider-like drones, crawled across the land, sucking nutrients from the soil, leaving behind gray dust that blew like snow in the poisoned wind. In the ruins of New Haven, a city once home to 2 million, a small group of survivors huddled in an underground bunker. Their leader, a former engineer named Mara, checked the air filters for the 100th time that day. The filters were clogged. The oxygen recycler was failing. Outside, the Krell patrols marched in perfect silence, their armored limbs clicking against the broken pavement. Mara had sent the distress call. She hadn't expected an answer. But when the Marathi ship replied, hope flickered, briefly. Then came the silence. No fleet, no rescue. Just more waiting. She didn't know that help was already on its way. High above, in orbit, the Persephone's resolve hung like a ghost. Captain Rourke stood on the drop deck, watching as his team suited up. 12 of them, all volunteers. All marked for death back on Earth, given one last chance. Serve in the outer reach or vanish into a black hole. They chose to fight. Remember, Rourke said, his voice low. We're not here to win a war. We're here to buy time, find the source of the biocontamination, shut it down, then get out before the Krell swarm us. No one nodded. They didn't need to. They knew the plan. They'd done this before. On Xylos, on Vanta's Reach, on a dozen dead rocks the galaxy had forgotten. The drop pods were old, dented, and barely spaceworthy. But they worked. One by one, the team climbed in. Rourke took the lead pod. The hatch sealed with a hiss. Drop in 10, came Tessa's voice over the comm. Rourke closed his eyes. He didn't pray. On Earth, prayers didn't stop acid rain or pack wolves. Action did. The pod launched. It screamed through the atmosphere, heat shields glowing red. Alarms blared as turbulence shook the metal coffin. Rourke gripped the handles, teeth clenched. Below, the Krell command spire rose from the ruins like a black fang. 10 stories of reinforced alloy, bristling with sensors and turrets. Perfect. The pod didn't slow. It hit the spire's roof at Mach 2. The explosion lit up the sky. Concrete. Metal and Krell bodies flew in every direction. The shockwave flattened buildings for a full kilometer. Fires erupted. Alarms wailed across the city. From the crater, Rourke climbed out. His armor was cracked, smoking, but intact. He tapped his helmet. Status. One by one, voices came back. Clear. Moving. Engaging. No panic. No fear, just work. His team fanned out like shadows. They didn't wear bright uniforms or carry loud weapons. Their rifles were matte black, their movements silent. They used the smoke, the ruins, the chaos. Within minutes, 3 Krell patrol units were down. Throats slit. Power cores overloaded or dragged into collapsed tunnels never to be seen again. The Krell were strong, fast, relentless. But they fought like machines, predictable, rigid, bound by protocol. Humans didn't. In a ruined school, 2 soldiers rigged a gas main to blow when a harvester passed. In a subway tunnel, another set lured a squad into a dead end and dropped the ceiling on them. One woman, Lena, climbed a water tower and used a scavenged Krell comms dish to jam their signals, turning their own drones against each other. Mara and the survivors heard the explosions. They felt the ground shake. At first, they thought the Krell were testing new weapons. Then they saw the fires not spreading but moving, controlled, purposeful. Someone's fighting back, whispered a boy, pressing his face to a crack in the bunker door. Mara didn't believe it. Not until she saw a Krell warwalker, 20 meters tall, armored like a tank, stagger, then collapse as its legs were blown out from under it by a single-shaped charge. And then she saw him, a figure in battered armor, standing atop the wreckage, scanning the horizon. He moved like he owned the ruins, like the death around him was just another Tuesday. Rourke didn't see the bunker. He was focused on the data streaming into his visor. Thermal scans showed heavy Krell activity near the old geothermal plant, deep underground. That's where the strange readings were coming from. The biocontamination wasn't Krell tech. It was something else. Something older. But before he could move, the ground trembled again. Not from an explosion. From footsteps. Big ones. Through the smoke, 3 figures emerged. Tall, hunched, their bodies half machine, half nightmare. Their eyes glowed red. Wires snaked from their spines into backpack-like reactors. These weren't regular soldiers. These were Reapers, elite Krell enforcers. Cybernetic horrors bred for one purpose: hunt and kill anything that resisted. They'd never been defeated, never even slowed. The lead Reaper raised a clawed hand. A pulse cannon unfolded from its forearm. Rourke didn't run. He tapped his comm. Reapers inbound. Sector Gamma, light them up. From the rooftops, snipers fired. Not bullets, electromagnetic darts that fried circuits. One Reaper staggered, sparks flying from its neck. But it didn't fall. It laughed. A wet, grinding sound that made even hardened soldiers flinch. Rourke drew a blade from his thigh sheath. Not plasma. Not laser. Just steel. Sharp, simple, earth-made. He charged. The Reaper met him halfway. Metal clashed. Sparks flew. Rourke ducked under a swipe that could have cleaved a tank in 2. He drove the blade into a joint in the Reaper's leg. Black fluid sprayed. The thing roared, but Rourke was already gone, rolling behind a burnt-out bus. Fall back to the plant, he yelled. They're hurting us, but we'll use it. His team moved like water, flowing, splitting, regrouping. They knew the rules. Never fight fair, never fight alone, never stop moving. Mara watched from the bunker, heart pounding. These weren't soldiers. They were ghosts or demons. She couldn't tell which. One of Rourke's people, a young man with a scar across his nose, paused near the bunker entrance. He looked right at the crack in the door. For a second, their eyes met. Then he tossed something inside. A small device. It beeped once and stuck to the wall. Mara picked it up. A comms unit. A voice crackled. If you want to live, follow the red light on your screen. We're opening a path. Move fast. She didn't hesitate. Above, Rourke reached the geothermal plant's entrance. The Reapers were closing in. His team was scattered. Ammo was low, but he smiled. Because the Krell thought this was their world now. They were wrong. Earth didn't send diplomats. It sent wolves. And wolves always hunted in the dark. The geothermal plant loomed like a tomb beneath the cracked earth of Helios Prime. Its entrance was sealed with blast doors thick enough to survive a direct orbital strike. But Rourke didn't need to blast them open. His team had already found a service tunnel, rusted, flooded, and forgotten. They moved through it in single file, boots sloshing in knee-deep water that smelled of sulfur and decay. Inside, the air was cold and still. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows on the walls. The place had been abandoned for decades, maybe longer. Dust coated every surface. Wires hung like dead vines. But deep in the core, something hummed. Rourke led the way, his rifle ready, eyes scanning every corner. He knew the Krell wouldn't follow them down here, not yet. Reapers were strong, but they weren't built for tight spaces or patience. They'd wait above, trap the exits, and burn the place down if they had to. That gave Rourke time, not much, but enough. At the heart of the facility, they found it. A sealed vault marked with faded Earth symbols. The logo was old, pre-collapse from the days when humanity still dreamed of spreading peacefully among the stars. Now it looked like a warning. Lena hacked the lock with a handheld pulse tool. Sparks flew. The door groaned open. Inside was not a weapon, not a bomb. It was a library. Rows of data cores, cryotubes lined with frost, and wall screens still running on backup power. One screen lit up as they entered, showing a human face. Gaunt, tired, but sharp-eyed. Project Chimera log, final entry, the recording began. If you're hearing this, the Krell have reached Helios Prime. Or worse, Earth has fallen. Rourke froze. The scientist on screen explained it all. Decades ago, Earth's governments, facing extinction from climate collapse, war, and alien threats no one else knew about, launched a secret program. They took human DNA and fused it with genes from Earth's toughest life forms. Bacteria from deep-sea vents that thrived in boiling acid, lichens that grew on radioactive rock, tardigrades that survived the vacuum of space. The goal was simple: create humans who could live anywhere, fight anything, and never break. They called them chimeras. The project was shut down after the first trials. Too unstable, too dangerous. The subjects were too strong, too fast, too hard to control. Officially, all records were destroyed. All subjects terminated. But someone had hidden this archive. And someone had kept the work alive. Rourke looked at his hands. At his team. He'd always known he was different. He healed faster. Saw better in the dark. Could go days without food or water. He thought it was just Earth hardening, survival instinct. Now he knew the truth. He wasn't just from a death world. He was the death world. Lena pulled a core from the rack. This contains the full genome sequence and a terraforming virus designed to purge non-native life. It rewrites local biology to favor Earth-based organisms. Rourke's blood ran cold. That's what's poisoning the planet? No, she said grimly. The Krell must have triggered it when they drilled into the crust. The virus is loose, and it's adapting. Outside, the ground shook. Distant booms echoed through the tunnels. The Krell were getting impatient. Then, a new sound. Metal scraping on stone. Close. Reapers. They'd found the tunnel. Seal the vault, Rourke ordered. They slammed the door shut just as claws raked against the other side. The metal groaned but held, for now. Tessa's voice crackled in their earpieces. Rourke, we've got bigger trouble. My scans show the virus is spreading through the Krell fleet's air recyclers. It's rewriting their biology. They're changing. Rourke stared at the data core in Lena's hand. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a plague. And if it got off-world, it could rewrite entire ecosystems. Turn alien worlds into twisted versions of Earth. Or kill everything trying. Earth Command would never allow that. Which meant they'd do what they always did when a threat got out of hand. Glass the planet. Burn it clean from orbit. Rourke looked at his team. They all understood. They'd seen it before. Earth didn't save its children. It erased its mistakes. But then Mara's voice came through the comms unit he'd left her.
We're at the secondary entrance.
The Krell are everywhere. What do we do? Rourke made a choice. Hold position, he said. We're coming out, he turned to Lena. Can you modify the virus? Make it target only the Krell? She bit her lip. Maybe, but I'd need the main core online. And power. And time. We don't have time. We never do. Rourke nodded. Then we buy some. He opened a channel to Tessa. Tell Hale the virus is active. Tell her we're working on a fix. And tell her, if she gets the order to glass this world, she better ignore it. Silence. Then, she won't like that. She doesn't have to. The scraping on the door grew louder. Cracks appeared in the metal. Rourke loaded his rifle. On my mark, we blow the eastern wall. Flood the tunnel. It'll slow them down. His team moved without question. They planted charges, checked ammo, tightened straps, no fear. Just focus. Because they knew the truth now. They weren't soldiers. They were the cure, and the disease was coming. As the charges detonated and icy water roared into the tunnel, Rourke grabbed the data core. He didn't know if they could stop the virus. He didn't know if they'd survive the hour, but he knew one thing for certain: Earth might abandon them. The galaxy might fear them. But they would not let Helios Prime die. Not by Krell hands, not by human orders, and not by a weapon they never asked to carry. They were chimeras, and Deathworlders didn't beg for mercy. They gave it, even when it cost them everything. Space above Helios Prime turned black with warships. 500 Krell vessels formed a perfect ring around the dying planet. Their hulls gleamed like obsidian, smooth and silent, bristling with weapons that had erased entire civilizations. At the center of the fleet hung the Iron Maw, the Krell flagship, a city-sized monster with a maw-like prow designed to swallow enemy ships whole. From its bridge, High Commander Vrak broadcast a final message across all frequencies. His voice was cold, mechanical, stripped of all emotion. Surrender the humans. Hand over the bioweapon data, or we will burn your world to ash and scatter your bones across the void. The Marathi ship, Covenant's Mercy, floated far outside the battle zone. Ambassador Varel listened, his limbs trembling. There was no hope. No fleet in the Concord could stand against this. Then the stars rippled, not with light, not with sound, with chaos. Out of the dark came ships, dozens at first, then hundreds. But they were not like the sleek vessels of the Concord. These were patched, dented, and cobbled together from scrap. A freighter with missile pods welded to its hull, a mining barge dragging a net of explosive drones, a hospital ship retrofitted with railguns, and at the heart of it all, a massive carrier built inside a hollowed-out comet, its surface crawling with turrets and launch bays. The UNSS Gaia's Wrath. On its bridge, Admiral Hale stood with her arms crossed, watching the Krell armada on the main screen. She was older than most admirals, her face lined with scars and sleepless nights. Her uniform bore no medals, just a single patch, a green sprig on a black field. The symbol of Earth. Signal the Krell, she said. Her comms officer hesitated. Ma'am, they'll think we're bluffing. Hale smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Let them. The transmission went out, raw and unfiltered. This is Admiral Hale of the Terran Outer Defense. You thought Earth was a myth. You were wrong. We're the graveyard you never saw coming. Stand down or be buried. Silence. Then the Krell fired. Beams of plasma lanced across space, tearing into the human fleet. A cargo hauler exploded. A scout ship vanished in a flash of light, but the humans didn't retreat. They charged. A battered destroyer rammed a Krell cruiser, punching through its shield and detonating its core. A swarm of fighter drones no bigger than coffins launched from the Gaia's Wrath, each packed with acid charges that ate through Krell armor like paper. And then came the real horror. Tessa, still in orbit aboard the Persephone's Resolve, activated the Chimera virus inside the Krell fleet's life support systems. It spread fast through air vents, water lines, even data cables. Within minutes, Krell soldiers began convulsing. Their skin cracked. Their eyes turned milky white. And then they turned on each other. On the Iron Maw, Vrak watched in disbelief as his elite guard tore apart their own officers with bare hands. The virus wasn't just killing them, it was rewriting them, making them something else. Something that remembered Earth's rules. Only the strong survive. Back on the surface, Rourke's team heard the distant thunder of orbital strikes. The sky flashed with fire. They're here, Lena said, fingers flying over a jury-rigged console in the geothermal plant's control room. Good, Rourke replied. Now we finish this. He'd sent Mara and the survivors to a safe zone with instructions to stay hidden. His team stayed behind to hold the line and help Lena finish the counter-virus. Outside, Reapers still pounded on the vault door. But now their movements were erratic, slower, confused. The virus was reaching them too. Lena wiped sweat from her brow. I've got it. The counter-strain target's only non-Earth DNA. It'll purge the Chimera virus without harming native life. But I need to upload it to the Krell flagship's main network. That's the only way to spread it fast enough. Rourke looked at his team. Who's flying? A young man named Jack stepped forward. I'll take the drop pod. I can get close. No, Rourke said. I will. Before anyone could argue, he grabbed a data spike and sealed his helmet. Keep the tunnel clear. If I'm not back in an hour, Blow the core and run. He didn't wait for a reply. He slipped out through a maintenance shaft, moving like a ghost through the ruins. Above, the battle raged. Fire rained from the sky. Wreckage fell like black snow. Jax launched a pod from the Persephone's Resolve. It streaked toward the Iron Maw, dodging fire, trailing smoke. Rourke rode inside, heart steady, mind clear. He didn't fear death. On Earth, death was just another teacher. The pod slammed into the flagship's hull. Rourke cut his way in with a plasma torch. Inside the ship was chaos. Krell soldiers fought each other in the corridors. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. He moved fast, following the ship's network map in his visor. 10 minutes. 20 decks. 3 close calls. Finally, he reached the core chamber, a massive sphere of glowing data crystals. He jammed the data spike into the main port. Uploading now, he said into his comm. Hurry, Tessa urged. Krell are regrouping. They're trying to purge their own systems. The upload bar crawled. 30%, 50%, 70%, then footsteps. Heavy, metallic. Vrack stood in the doorway, his body half melted by the virus, one eye gone, the other burning with hate. He raised a plasma blade. Rourke didn't reach for his gun. He stood his ground. Vrack lunged. Rourke sidestepped, grabbed a loose cable, and whipped it around the Krell's neck. They crashed to the floor, rolling, smashing into consoles. Sparks flew, 8%. Vrack roared, throwing Rourke against a wall. Ribs cracked. Vision blurred. 100%. Upload complete, Lena's voice said. Rourke grinned through bloody teeth. Then let's go home. He triggered the pod's recall beacon and ran. Behind him, the Iron Maw shuddered as the counter-virus spread through its systems. Krell ships began powering down. Soldiers collapsed, not dead, but cleansed. The human fleet pulled back, battered, but alive. But then Hale's voice came over the comm, cold and heavy. Rourke, Earth Command just sent new orders. The virus is still unstable. They're authorizing full planetary sterilization. We have 6 hours before they glass. Helios Prime. Rourke stopped running. He looked out a viewport at the burning planet below, at the people hiding in the ruins, at the world that had begged for help. And he made his choice. Rourke stood in the dim light of the Krell flagship's corridor, the recall beacon in his hand blinking red. 6 hours. That was all Helios Prime had left. Earth Command didn't care about survivors, didn't care about the truth. They saw a threat and their answer was always the same. Burn it clean. He tapped his comm. Hale, you're not going through with this. Her voice was tired. I don't have a choice. Orders are orders, and then break them, silence stretched. In that silence, Rourke heard the weight of every soldier who'd ever followed orders straight into a grave. Finally, Hale spoke. What do you propose? Rourke looked down at the planet through a cracked viewport. Smoke curled from the ruins. Somewhere down there, Mara and the others were waiting, hoping. We expose everything, he said. The Chimera Project. Earth's secret. The Krell's crimes. We send it to every species in the Conquered. Let them decide what's right. That's treason, Hale said. Then call it that, Rourke replied. But I won't let them erase these people just to hide our mistakes. Back on the Gaia's Wrath, Hale stared at the data packet Rourke had sent. It contained everything. Project Chimera logs, Krell invasion records, proof of the biocontamination. If she broadcast it, Earth would brand her a traitor. The Concord might panic. War could spread. But if she stayed silent, millions would die for nothing. She made her choice. With a single command, she opened every channel, every network, every public feed in known space. The truth poured out like floodwater, raw, ugly, undeniable. Across the galaxy, screens lit up. Marathi diplomats froze. Trade guilds halted. Even the silent observers of the Outer Rim watched in shock. Earth wasn't a myth. It was a weapon. And its soldiers had just saved a world the galaxy had abandoned. On Helios Prime, the Krell fleet began to retreat. Their ships powered down, turned, and vanished into warp. The virus had done its work, not by killing, but by showing them what true survival looked like. They had met something they couldn't consume, couldn't control. The humans. Rourke returned to the surface in a stolen Krell shuttle. His team met him at the geothermal plant, battered but alive. Lena held up a scanner. The counter-virus is spreading through the biosphere. The air's stabilizing. Water's clearing. It'll take time, but The planet will live. Mara ran toward them, her face streaked with dirt and tears. You did it, she whispered. Rourke shook his head. We just gave it a chance. Above, the human fleet held position. No firing, no threats, just watching, waiting. Then, a new message came, not from Earth, not from the Krell, but from Ambassador Varel aboard the Covenant's Mercy. To the people of Earth, his voice said, translated into rough but clear standard. You did not send aid. You sent wolves, and the galaxy will never sleep soundly again. It wasn't praise. It wasn't thanks. It was warning. And respect, Rourke almost smiled, but then Hale's voice cut in, sharp and urgent. Rourke, Earth Command just tagged your entire team for retrieval. They're calling you rogue assets. They want you silenced. Rourke looked at his squad. At Lena, Jax, Tessa's voice still crackling from orbit. They all knew what that meant. Then we disappear, he said. They moved fast, gathered what supplies they could, led Mara and the survivors to a hidden valley where clean water still flowed, left them food, tools, and a single comm unit tuned to a private frequency. If you need us, Rourke told Mara, send a signal. Just 3 pulses. We'll hear it, she nodded. No words needed. As the Persephone's resolve lifted off, Rourke watched Helios Prime shrink below. Green shoots were already pushing through the ash, life stubborn and fierce, refusing to die. In orbit, the human fleet began to scatter, not in formation, not by orders, but by choice. Ships peeled off one by one, vanishing into uncharted space. The Gaia's wrath stayed last. Hale sent one final message to Earth Command. Mission complete. Asset status lost. Then she cut the link. Deep in a command bunker on Earth, a general stared at a blank screen. He opened a file labeled Rourke Elias Chimera Subject 7. With a sigh, he deleted it, erased, forgotten. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers began. When the Krell returned, they avoided human-marked systems. When colonies fell silent, some sent the 3-pulse signal into the void, and sometimes, days later, a battered ship would drop out of warp. No flags, no names. Just action. Back on the Persephone's resolve, Rourke stood at the viewport watching the stars. Tessa handed him a cup of bitter coffee. Where to now? She asked. He didn't answer right away. He thought of Earth, not the planet, but the idea. Not the government, but the spirit. The will to fight when all hope was gone, to stand when others ran. Wherever they're begging, he said. And somewhere in the endless dark between stars, a single drop pod drifted, empty, waiting, ready, because Earth didn't send heroes, it sent survivors, and survivors never stop fighting.